Welcome to Beyond Names. I'm Dr. Habib. This is a space for spiritual seekers and soulful misfits, for the curious and the committed, and for those grounded in a tradition, as well as those who are not sure what they believe. Whether you call the divine God, Yahweh, Allah, Elohim, Brahman, Great Spirit, higher power, or you're still searching for language that fits, you are welcome here. Together, we'll explore the intersections of spirituality and daily life, the wisdom of many traditions, and the ways we return to our true selves, to our source, to the light that each of us carry within. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin with introduction of our conversation partner for this episode, Cindy Libman. Cindy was a psychotherapist for 45 years and she became a master spiritual healer. She now serves as faculty at the University of Sufism, and I'm especially happy to have her here because she's here to talk about the intersection of spirituality and art. So because she is also a painter. To learn more about Cindy and her work, please visit Cindy Libman, Libman.com. Cindy, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, what a treat. I love the idea of this podcast for exploring. It's such a needed venue. So thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Oh, well, my pleasure. So, would you please introduce yourself by telling us a bit about your spiritual story?
Sure. So I have kind of a colorful background. I was raised Jewish, and then for many years I was a Buddhist. And on my Buddhist journey, I kept feeling like something was missing. I wasn't sure what that was, but I felt like I wasn't yet home. And so I
Mm,
started exploring, and I was in an energy healing school at that time. And the woman who was teaching was a Sufi. And I thought, Sufi, never heard of a Sufi. What is a Sufi? And she did these different practices and she did Sufi dances, which the universal dances of peace, which people have probably heard of, but I had never heard of it.
yeah.
And so I started going to workshops. I went to one workshop, I don't remember where it was, and they were doing a chant, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God, the one God, everybody's God. And I didn't know what the chant meant exactly, but I started weeping. And
Mm,
as I started weeping, I thought, why am I weeping? I wasn't sad. There wasn't anything going on. And I started feeling into kind of the texture of the weeping,
mhm,
and it became like coming home. That's the best I can describe it. It was like coming home. There was something about this that just opened a place in me that felt like home. And I thought, huh, okay, that's interesting information. And so I was still kind of dabbling at that point. Eventually, I ended up on a Sufi path. It was at the time called Shishti Order or Sufi International.
mhm,
Um, Pir Vilayat was the head of that order at the time. And
mhm,
I took initiation with him at a workshop. And it was just a spur of the moment decision. And what had called me to that particular Sufi order was the music,
mm,
that he had a lot of musical metaphors. And it was a beautiful order, beautiful path. And later on, I was really longing for community local.
mhm,
And I heard there was a local community of the Shadiliya Sufi order. And so I went to some of their workshops and eventually shifted, took initiation on this path, took the promise,
mhm,
and this order is a healing order. So it fit like just perfectly with what I was needing next. And I'll tell you, the reason I was seeking had to do with kind of what was happening in my life. I had had a lot of illness, and I had had panic attacks and a lot of anxiety for probably 20 years of my life. And
Mm,
as a therapist, I went and saw every big name therapist. And, you know, and I learned how to manage and I learned all sorts of things, but I was never really free. I was
mm,
never at peace in my own body.
mhm,
And so I was seeking because I had this thought that there's got to be a way where I could have peace in my body.
yeah.
And my anxiety was like, I would say, kind of debilitating. Like I wouldn't leave home.
Mm,
And it stirred up all sorts of different illness conditions. And so when most people in their 20s and 30s were out exploring in the world, I was very confined.
mhm.
You know, even though I went to college, I can't imagine how I managed that, but I went. Um, but I really did not have any kind of freedom.
Mhm, mm,
So as I started on this path, I learned practices, I went to school, like everything started transforming. And one of the things that really helped was that I understood that what I was listening to inside was not the truth.
mm,
You know, I was listening to the darkness of the world, the negativity, programming from my family, trauma conditions. And little by little by little, that started to heal. It started to open up and peel off of me. And then I discovered that the truth of my being is peace and
mm,
love and mercy. And what a surprise and a shock that was, you know? So, um, anyways, and eventually I just kept moving in that direction further and further and further because it felt so good. And I was really starting to be able to show up in my being, you know, who I was created to be, and had felt like I wasn't able to do that probably till after my 40s.
mm,
So it was a long journey. And I'm still a student. I'm a teacher. I'm a student. I probably will forever be on this path and learning and exploring and um, trying to be as close to God as I can.
mm.
So, and hopefully to share it with people and in the world. Okay, I think that takes us up to the uh, more or less. Um, Yeah, and so I don't know if I should talk a little bit about how the art entered in.
Please do, yeah.
Okay, so as a therapist and as a healer, I sit most of the time. And
Yeah.
all the new things say sitting is like the smoking now. Sitting is like not good for you. So I decided a number of years ago I need to institute some different like things for my body, for my health, for my well-being. So
Mm.
one of the things I do with my husband every day we walk. We start our morning with a walk, even though I live in Minnesota and it's like getting really cold here. But
What a
we get
brave
out there,
soul
we
you
walk.
are.
Yes, we bundle up and we walk. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as a teenager, I loved like sewing and crafts and making things and beading and baking and, making curtains and pillows. And, I always loved that kind of expression. And I was thinking, I do nothing now. I sit in front of a Zoom camera, talking to people, and it's not very balanced, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw this art, everybody's on YouTube and all those different things on, online. And I saw this woman and she was doing this art where you put little dots of paint down and then you take a squeegee and you pull it through. And she made these beautiful things. I thought, I can do that. So I went and I got some basic art supplies, and I'm going to show you like something similar to what whoops, similar to what was going on. So you can see it's just colors,
Yeah.
movement, nothing too complicated. And I started making these greeting cards.
Mm.
And now and I've got oh, there's all sorts of versions of them. Here's one. Sometimes they come into like really pretty patterns, but it's mostly movement and color. And depending on the mood I'm in, you'll see there's differences in kind of how they feel. So here's kind of some of my more recent ones. I've gone wild. And the colors and the movement and the scribbles all
Mm.
kind of go into like uh, you know, like a feeling that you get when you look at the art.
Mm.
And it's funny to watch. I watch people go through. I have hundreds of these cards. Here's one that's kind of a spring collection, wildflowers. And sometimes there's nature. Whoops, I guess this one's a little blurry. So I started making these greeting cards and then sending them to friends and people on the path. And like
Mm.
sometimes when I was teaching, when the class graduated, I'd write notes to people
Mm. Yeah.
and put them in the cards. And then people started wanting to, purchase my cards. And I had at that time probably 200 or 300 cards. I had really gone wild with it.
Yeah.
And there was something about it that was really, it just felt so good to be creating. There was
Mm.
something about it. And I thought, oh, whatever this feeling is that I'm having while I'm doing this is kind of where I want to live.
Mm.
It's like I wasn't stuck anywhere. Things were moving, things were shifting. There's a fluidity with it. And in that, there's an opening for whatever wants to move through to come through
Mm.
because I'm not using my mind or I'm using a different part of my mind, not using my mind to kind of make something happen. And you can see by these, they're very like fluid and,
Mhm.
color and movement.
Mhm.
And as a healer, one of the things I know is in order to change something, we have to kind of like open whatever we're carrying that's not serving us. We
Mhm.
have to explore it, we have to express it, and we have to kind of like open the way for God's light to come into that place and change it. We can't really change it if we're still holding so much stuff in there that there's no room for it. There's no
Mhm.
room for the change, no invitation for the change to come in. So, as I started doing this, it started to become more of a practice. And most artists, I don't really consider myself an artist at this point, but I love to make art. That's what I say. I love to make art. So most artists have kind of a practice they do. Some
Mhm.
people journal, they paint in a book, and I tried that for a while, but I felt very confined in this journal book. It was
Mhm.
like not big enough or large enough or had enough movement for me.
Yeah.
So then I started painting on canvases and using it as a way to really process whatever was alive in me in the moment. And
Mm.
sometimes it was joy, sometimes it was like excitement or fun, but
Mhm.
sometimes it was conflict or difficulty, or especially more recently, the last year or two,
Mm.
has, the world is so filled with I don't know what you'd say, like deceit and difficulty,
Mhm.
And so it's become a really wonderful way for me to like tune out the world
Mhm.
and move with whatever is moving through. So,
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I'm self-taught. I've never had any art lessons except for what I learned on YouTube's and other, there's artists I kind of follow online.
Yeah.
And there's a lot happening in the art world now with this kind of using art as kind of a spiritual path.
Mm,
Like there's a couple artists that I follow. Nicholas Wilton is one of them, and Louise Fletcher.
mhm,
And both of them are putting out materials and, exposing their own process and talking to people in a
mhm,
way that really enhances the spiritual dynamics and the emotional dynamics
mhm,
and moving the feelings rather than producing this realistic, pretty, beautiful piece of art. It's more like your unique voice and your own movement and what's happening and what's alive in you in this moment.
yeah. Mm. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I have a couple of questions that I want to come back to particular points in your spiritual story and what you're sharing about art. Um, First of all, I just want to, because as you and I talked about before we started recording, and in previous conversations, that part of my impetus in this podcast is the desire to make spirituality accessible to folks who might only think of spirituality as like, oh, this is when I pray, or this is when I go to the synagogue or the church or the temple or the ashram or the mosque, and to expand that and say, no, actually, spirituality can be experienced in everything and anything, um, with the right intention. So, as you know, that's part, but that begs the question of, okay, so if we are saying that spirituality can be experienced in art, what do we mean by spirituality? So, would you tell,
Yes.
yeah, would you tell us what spirituality means to
Mm.
you?
So for me, it means unity consciousness.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is the unity that everyone, everybody, every creature, everything is all connected. So
mm,
it's entering this place of really not just thinking it, like I know there's unity consciousness here,
mhm,
but really being able to feel it, embody it, open into it,
mhm,
and be able to use that as guidance, as movement, as resource. I mean, that's what I would say. It's like knowing in your cells, in your heart, in your mind, in every aspect of who you are,
mhm,
that you are part of something larger, that you are part of God consciousness, unity consciousness, whatever name you find for it,
mhm,
and really embodying to the best that we can in our human form, embodying those qualities of love, peace, mercy, justice, freedom, and being a vehicle for that to come through into the world, to contribute however it moves through you. You don't have to be a healer, a teacher. You can be a digger in the dirt and be very spiritual. You can be, you can be anything, but God sends through each of us our own fragrance, our own flavor, our own piece of the big tapestry. And so to really know that is such a beautiful experience and so much freedom, so much freedom. And to really be able to resource yourself direct from the source of the love, not
mm,
from people, we're all human, we're all flawed, we all make mistakes, we all fall down, we all have trials.
Yeah.
We're here to learn. We're here to learn. We're here to know God, and or whatever you come to call God. But on the Sufi path, we call God Allah. And I was very triggered by that word in the
Mm.
beginning, and
Mm.
now it's my deepest love. you know, so I wouldn't say it the first year. I wouldn't even try it. I wouldn't even try it. And now it's like everywhere I go, every movement I make, it's like there's an inner, it's like the heartbeat. There's like this inner Allah, Allah, Allah that stays with me like all the
Mm.
time,
Mm.
all the time. And I feel like I'm held in that. And so that's part of how I arrived at peace was not making separation. Like there's me, there's you, there's me, there's them. It's like
Yeah.
we're all in it, all together, all the time,
Yeah.
doing the best we can, you know. But I'll tell you for me it is miraculous that I can even be like on a dialogue like this because in my former life I couldn't have tolerated it.
Mm. Yeah.
So when I can do something like this, and it's not that I'm not somewhat nervous, you
Mm.
know, but I can, I'm held in the nervousness,
Mm.
so I can still find the peace.
Mm.
And for me, that is a miracle.
Yeah.
It's one of the little miracles in life
Yeah.
is how you can transform. And there's so many ways we can transform once we take up the business of transforming. Once we say yes, once we choose,
Yeah.
there are so many ways to transform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many parts of your story that I relate to in obviously there's differences, but when I first was exposed to Sufism, I was very much carrying childhood wounding. Um, and so just the word God, Lord, like any word whatsoever that had a religious connotation at all was a trigger. I was very reactive to any kind of word in that field. And so for me, it was actually nice to be exposed to the Arabic because I didn't know what it meant. And so
Really.
I approached the practices like a science experiment. And whenever somebody would try and tell me what something meant, I'd be like, oh, no, I don't want to know.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And of course, the Arabic language has a sound code. So it like works on you, even though you don't know what it means.
yeah,
And there's other languages that do that as well. Sanskrit, when you take a yoga class and they're speaking the Heart Sutras, whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what I like, what I found that sounds similar to you is that in approaching it as a science experiment and just starting to do these practices in Arabic, I noticed, oh, I feel more at peace. And it's a different state than I've felt before in my life prior to this point. I feel more calm, differently than I have felt prior to this point. And then before I knew it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm experiencing this sense of connection to the divine and a sense of being held in divine love before that I hadn't experienced before. So, uh, and a sense of coming home, as you mentioned earlier, that sense of, so yeah, I feel many points of connection with that. And then I'm also reminded of when you talked about how the name Allah is something that you were initially reactive to in the beginning, but now it's sort of is like, I forget the language you used, but almost as if it's with you and breathing you in every heartbeat. And that
Yes.
reminds me of Gandhi talking about Rahma as his mantra, using the divine name Rahma. And that he referred to that as his staff of life.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So it sounds
Beautiful.
like Allah, the remembrance of Allah in your heart has become a staff of life
Yes. And
for
it's
you.
not
Yeah,
something that is like rote, like I say it because somebody told me to say it.
yeah,
I say it from this place of love and seeking the love and receiving and returning and, kind of this endless loop.
yeah,
And it's resource for me. Like if I have to go to the dentist office and I'm going to have some work done and I'm not happy about it,
yeah,
inwardly, I'm saying Allah, Allah, Allah. And what I'm feeling is like Allah's got this. Like the dentist, the room, me,
yeah,
everything that's happening in it, that
yeah,
it's all contained in the light.
yeah,
And then I can let go. Oh, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to try and control it. I don't have to plan out every step of what's going to happen here,
yeah,
that I can just let it be.
yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, in relation to the your description of spirituality as unity consciousness, is there something now that you've spent so much time as a painter, and is there something in the process of creativity, the process of painting that helps you make that connection with unity consciousness?
Well, I'll tell you, because I would say I'm a newer painter. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's been maybe a couple years, couple, 2, 3 years that
Okay.
I've been painting. Um, Really what I've used it for is
Mhm.
processing out
Mhm.
um, whatever is either in the way or whatever wants to move through. I approach it like a meditation practice in some ways. It's like, so, so here's what I would do on a I paint almost every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
here's what I would do. I set up my space. I kind of have some notion of maybe what colors are calling to me. Okay. And then I just start putting paint on the canvas. My husband will come in and out of the room sometimes when I'm painting, and it's like sometimes it's like a wild process, like I'm moving and changing and doing things. And sometimes it's a slow process. It's like whatever is arriving in the moment. So
Mhm.
there's different, I would say about my painting, I have kind of different categories, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So I'll show you something that I decided one day I put this canvas on the wall,
Mhm.
and I was going to paint on it, and I was really feeling drawn to like black and white, the interplay of black and white, the darkness,
Mhm.
the light, whatever. And I'll show you the product here. Can you see?
It's give it a minute. It's
Oh, here,
there you
here,
go. That's better.
there. This
Yeah.
is better. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can see it's black and white, it's abstract, there's all sorts of things happening in it.
Yeah.
And when I started it, it was just black and white in the center, like this big swirl. And every day I'd, kind of walk by it. It was kind of, I usually have 2 or 3 projects going at the same time.
Hmm.
And one day I came by it and I saw this face appear. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't paint faces. I don't paint people. Okay. And here is what's in the center of the painting. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's this woman's face.
Yeah.
And I started to see her, and I just took a white, like crayon-like thing and outlined what appeared.
Yeah.
I don't draw really. And there she was. And behind her is, I don't know if you can quite see this with the accuracy, to the left of her, to the side of her here, you can see there's kind of a man's
Oh,
face.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's like, where did that come from? You know? It just kind of appeared, and I just like honored it, went with it, and there it was. And my husband came down and he looked and he thought, oh my goodness, like what to your abstract? I said, I don't know, this face just came. And so I never know quite what's going to come through.
Hmm.
And so then that started kind of an opening for me of doing faces and doing bodies and doing out of abstracts. I saw this woman online who painted, who would make an abstract painting and then she'd sit with it and she'd see what appeared.
Hmm.
And so I started that process just because it interested me when I saw her.
Yeah.
And all sorts of different people would show up. Yeah. So I have a whole series of diversity. But so then I have other things that come through. Oh, here, I'll show you. Here's one on paper. This is one that started as an abstract painting. Is that clear for you?
No, hold it closer to your, there you
Oh,
go.
face there. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's a sweet spot here. So
Yeah.
you can see the wild colors.
Yeah.
And then out of the colors, when I sat with it, these women appeared.
Hmm.
You know, they're different races, different colors, different ages, different whatever.
Yeah.
And I just started really kind of loving this
Yeah.
and wanting to see who's going to be visiting. Here's another one of the same. This is a really large one.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting, and I don't know, there's something about it that just made me feel good. You know,
Hmm.
oftentimes I paint for like joy, movement, appreciation, gratitude. Those
Hmm.
are a lot of the things. And here, I'll show you some since I have my papers here. This is one of the flowers. I love doing
Hmm.
flowers. This is one of the
Yeah.
joyful ones. And
Yeah.
this was created in probably 10 minutes.
Wow.
That's kind of what happens when it comes through. It's like sometimes I struggle with something over and over and over, and that's a different kind of process because the struggle
Hmm.
needs to be there.
Hmm.
You know, it's like I'm working through something and I'm learning something while I'm working it. Like I'm working and I think I can't finish this right now. It isn't ready to be finished. Whereas
Yeah.
this one just came out that way,
Yeah.
you know? But
Yeah.
some of them are like a struggle, and I go back and I go back and I go back. And then, you know, painting is so much like life, you know?
Yeah.
Like some things are easy and we just go with it, and some things take time to develop, to breathe, to show themselves. And sometimes what I think I've started with is not at all what I end up with. Those are the fun ones. You know, it's like I read this book Pierre Vilayet wrote one time. It was called That Which Transpires Behind That Which Appears. And
Hmm.
so it's like I've got a painting, and all of a sudden I just have this knowing this is not it. This is not it. And I totally move it. I totally transform it. I paint over it. I sand it down. I do whatever I need to do to let what wants to be there be there. And I'm oftentimes so much more happy with what shows up. So um, I was going to show this one. We'll see how we can do with showing this because this one, let's see, where is the good sweet zone for this? Well, you can see it's a sailboat more or less in a rough sea. Okay. And
Yeah.
this one is called Ride It Out. And
Hmm.
this painting was sitting in my basement with me for a while, changing kind of daily. Um, and it was during a time where I was really triggered by something. I
Hmm.
was, you can see the colors are not so light and bright. They're kind of more dulled.
Yeah.
And and I was painting it out. I was just painting this storm right out.
Yeah.
And eventually it cleared. And it was funny, the sailboat wasn't in there until the very end.
Mm.
And then I thought, write it out,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. Huh. So I can't, earlier you made the connection between your experience of healing and your experience of painting. And I can't help but make the connection between the emphasis in Sufism on purification and
Yes.
cleaning. And when you're talking about your painting process, it sounds very much like it's almost a purification process, that it's like a process of you um, cleaning or clearing out whatever is there, almost like your vessel can be like clear and free flowing and in the universal flow, because there's the barriers have been removed, so to speak. Is that an accurate way of
Wait,
expressing?
that's a very good way of expressing it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like whatever needs to move can move
Mhm.
because, it's like sometimes, like, let's say I get triggered, I'm angry about something or impatient, like we all have to deal with our own nature, our own temperament, until we
Yes.
don't. And there's no way, like I know all the spiritual principles of no, not speaking it, not hurting people, not whatever, but I'm
Right.
still carrying this energy inside. Like, what the heck do you do with it, right?
Yes.
And so for me, I'm a little I don't know what you'd call it, expressive, intense, strong-willed. That's what I've been given. When it's
Hmm.
aligned with the light, it's wonderful. I can get things done, I can move things. But when
Yeah.
it's not in alignment, I'm like tripping over myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so you're right, it is a purification process. It's a process of, okay, I don't want to move this stormy mood I'm having on anybody else, but I
Yeah.
can put it on the canvas and move it outside of me and create some room for
Yeah.
what wants to live in there,
Mm.
because otherwise it's like we have a sliver in us and it's festering,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
then we try and paint like something nice over it. It's not going to happen. It's like it needs to come out in its mess, in its form, in its, you know in its I'll show you another one here that I've got. This is a very recent one. um I don't know if you can see this. This is like graffiti art, I would call, but
Yeah.
it's got heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was painted, I think, on a bad political day, when there was stuff happening in the world. And I like didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to, do anything with it. And I
Yes.
have friends that are all activated about, political things. And I thought, this is where I'm going with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then I put heart over it.
Very nice. Yeah.
Over all the chaos and all the things that are moving.
Mm.
Yes. And sometimes this is a painting I did that's very, okay, let's see here. This is like a solitude one, and it's
Mm.
done with gold. It's got a lot of gold light in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is kind of like, sometimes I paint a lot of nature and or dreamlike states. This is one that's another kind of soft ease,
Mm. Yeah.
you know.
It's
So you
beautiful.
can feel the different moods in these. And it's funny when people come to look at the art, um, they resonate with certain things,
Yeah.
and they don't resonate with other things. And they like certain colors and they don't like other colors.
Yeah.
And it's a whole like Rorschach test of what's happening inside the person. And I find that the paintings I created quickly,
Mhm.
okay, are the ones that resonate the most with people.
Mm.
The ones I toiled over and had trouble with and whatever, not quite so much.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's like people are, they want to invoke, I think, especially right now in the world, they want to invoke joy or peace or hope or upliftment, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So art, painting as a practice of joy, as a practice of gratitude, as a practice of peace, as a practice of um, cleaning or clearing, as a practice of creating inner spaciousness, um, as a practice of transformation, sounds like. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And it's kind of like, I think it's why like people are like runners or,
Mm,
engage in physical activity because when you complete, when you're done, whatever you've done, there's
mm,
this feeling of like, hmm,
mm.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like now you're clear, now you're clean, now you can open to life as it is, from a different place.
yeah,
From a different place. It's like all this movement that needed to happen happened. And
yeah.
now you can just kind of receive.
It's it's so great that you just said that in a lot of the spiritual formation classes and podcast listeners who've listened to every episode have heard me say this before, but I talk about the R's of the spiritual development process being remembering, reading, reflecting, receiving, and returning. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, this is art as openness, which is a receiving practice. It's like you are consciously engaging in a process that allows you through the clearing to become more open and to receive more love and to receive more light and by opening to receive more, you open to give more. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
So, what would you say to, let's say, a college student or a young person, a high school, college who is finding art as a passion, but is not necessarily aware of spirituality in any way. Is there any tip or any word of wisdom that you might offer?
Well, what comes to mind is, our guide CD, his words, which is, you have to know yourself to know your Lord. You
Mm,
have to know yourself deeply. And so it's like, there's like this beautiful curiosity about like what colors call to me? What
mhm,
marks do I want to make? What statements do I want to, whatever. Just it's a way of really knowing your unique voice.
mm,
And through that, knowing what qualities God has put in you. We all carry all the qualities, but we carry them in a little different order or a little different. Like some people have a lot of mercy, whereas some people have a lot of strength, or some people have, and so as we get to know ourselves, and when you're young, it's not so easy to know your unique voice in this world because there's so much coming at you, so
mm,
much external coming at you, coming in.
mm,
So creating space to really know what is coming through you in the depth of your being is really a beautiful practice. And there's so many ways you can arrive at that. Um, Art is one of them. Art is
yeah,
very meditative, you know.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it can be. some people have, totally different approach to art than I do. I think because I never really um, approached it as like I'm going to earn a living doing this. You
Hmm.
know, it was more just a love.
Yeah.
It's something I love. I'm going to follow it. And then it had all these benefits,
Hmm.
and I think there's a lot of people who exercise in the same way, because I
Yeah.
find that walking in nature, same thing. It creates this openness and this beauty and relaxation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of art as a spiritual practice. And I appreciate your wisdom and your willingness to share. So thank you to all listeners for joining us on Beyond Names. Before we go, if you would take one breath to pause and reflect for just a moment on what stays with you from this conversation with Cindy. May something you heard today help you reconnect with the light in your own heart. May you grow in compassion and clarity and courage. May you find your way again and again back home to yourself, back home to the divine, however you name it. If today's conversation spoke to you, please like, share, and comment on this episode. And please follow Beyond Names. To make an appointment with me, please visit habibburger.com. Until next time, may you be light. May you consciously participate in growing your light. And may you share your light. Peace be with you.
Mhm.